Our friend Chris Poole, who moderated the session on cutting-edge technology in education this morning, is so well practiced at that, and is such an expert moderator that I feel a little bit daunted by the standards set, not least because I'm less familiar with the activity myself, but also because the subject matter of the discussion that follows is somewhat familiar to me, but I don't claim to be a subject matter expert. So I'm looking for those of you in the audience following who are working here in education in the region. If you have questions and comments, as with all the other sessions, we'll really be relying on you to weigh in with your thoughts. I will ask periodically to see if there's anything you would like to ask or add. So there'll be a three-way discussion involving myself from the organiser. We're also joined by two people here working on the ground in education in the Abu Dhabi Emirate. So on the extreme right as I stand, we're joined by Susie Ballantyne, who is an ICT specialist with the GEMS School Improvement Partnership in Abu Dhabi, working with ADEC. And also working with ADEC, we're joined by Dr. Mahmoud Wisha, who is the ICT Curriculum Advisor and Coordinator for the CFBT Education Trust. And their roles are somewhat similar, and it will be interesting to see how far their experiences have been similar as well. We're going to open the session with a short presentation from Dr. Wisha. This is not supported by slides, but I know you would like to make some opening remarks. So if we join Dr. Wisha, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Joey. Assalamu alaikum. The preserving the region's cultural heritage in a connected world. To start with, let's define culture. Culture is a complex features held by social groups, which may be as small as a family or a tribe, or as large as a racial or ethnic group or a nation. Culture has been called the way of life for an entire society. As such, it includes codes of manners, dress, language, religion, rituals, law and morality, systems of beliefs that are inherited from past generations, maintained in the present, and bestowed for the benefit of future generations. During the past few years, the Middle East has recorded the largest growth in internet use among the major world areas. The number of Middle Eastern citizens accessing the web has soared by more than 600%, 3 times the world's average increase. However, more important than rising internet access or use of mobile telephones is the official awareness at the highest level of Middle Eastern governments that it is no longer possible not to invest in technology and modernization at the meantime how to preserve the region's culture. But the delay in investing in ICT technology, infrastructures, and human skills has meant that the region lags behind considerably in its development relative to the rest of the world. While the internet is indeed a wonderful source of information, much of what is available is in English and was created for an industrialized world audience in mind. Despite the world's Arabic speakers, which number over 350 million, and of whom 16% use the internet, Arabic web pages represent only less than 1% of the total web pages, or an estimated 100 million pages, compared with approximately 40 billion pages in all other languages. Even with the limited number of Arabic web pages, another barrier, the lack of a full search engine optimized for Arabic. It is anticipated high-powered local Arabic pages searching capability will without a doubt assist the Arabic-speaking internet users who do not speak English. But the search engine will, of course, not create compelling content. To overcome these barriers, and to preserve the culture and heritage in the region, the following areas need to be considered. First of all, the government. The government is expected to play an instrumental role in driving reforms, as can be seen in Abu Dhabi, and be the catalyst for enabling effective development of the regional digital content industry. An efficient preservation policy should be integrated with the community and involve education in all levels, raising the awareness and the need to preserve the cultural heritage that has been handed down to us by our grandparents. Promote the development of rich and open Arabic digital content that will be disseminated regionally and globally. Develop a series of multimedia and web-based materials in Arabic that preserves and enhance local cultures. Create a center for digital documentation and archiving heritage, sharing of knowledge among Middle Eastern countries, ensuring a development of adequate infrastructures, and last but not least, translating and agreeing on the Arabic ICT terminology between Arab countries. In summary, the technological revolution represents a new opportunity for the preservation of cultural heritage of past generations' unique time and space that will never be relived again, but the least can be revisited. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I found it helpful to have some introductory remarks there. As I mentioned, I'm hardly a subject matter expert in this area. But as the organisers of Bett Middle East, we are here at the invitation of ADEC, and it has been our pleasure to form quite close relationships with the two organisations that we have represented by our two speakers here today. So in both cases, I've had the privilege and the pleasure to sit in on meetings with groups of school principals, briefer meetings than I would like, but beginning to get a flavour of some of the challenges that face educators in this region. In the case of CFBT, as represented by Dr. Wishart, I had an extended opportunity to learn quite a lot in a day or so. In that not only did I get to meet with principals here in Abu Dhabi City, but I also had the opportunity to travel out to Al Gharbia to visit a school, to speak with teachers, principals and their colleagues from the CFBT Trust, and I guess begin to get a bit of a flavour of the work that's being done there. I'm thinking of my visit to the school in Al Gharbia and how the principal there was careful to advise me on some of the cultural norms that I should observe when walking around the building and meeting members of staff and students and so on. And so it really resonates for me today that while we are in this exhibition area surrounded by interactive displays of potentially very exciting and also very impactful education technology, that in this part of the world all of this needs to be deployed with cultural sensitivity kept in mind all the way through. And with reference to Susie's organisation, GEMS Education, those of you who were not able to join the keynote session, which began our sessions here in the discussion zone yesterday, to summarise, the keynote address was led by the Chief Schools Officer of GEMS Education, Ralph Tabara. And I hadn't seen the contents of Ralph's presentation before it was actually delivered, so I'm open-minded about what to expect. And he was talking about the building blocks of a world-class education, and particularly a world-class education in this part of the world. And he put identity, cultural identity, family, language, religion, notions of nationality and so on, right at the heart of everything that's being done with GEMS at both the private schools and also the government sector schools that are working in partnership with Susie and members of her team. So I think this has been a theme that's really run through everything, and I anticipated that it would be important, but in a larger number of sessions than I had guessed would be the case, we've revisited this theme over and over again during these various panel discussions and presentations. So it's good that we've got the time to get a little bit more deeply inside this particular issue. And I have a few questions to stimulate discussion. But as I would repeat, if you have questions of your own or observations based on your experience of working here, do please direct them to us. And you would do that by raising your hand. One of my colleagues will bring a microphone for you. I also want to advise before we get underway that mindful of cultural norms, and also that we have, of course, a good number of native Arabic speakers here in the audience. Dr. Wisha's participation in this panel is going to be in Arabic. So if you are an English speaker first and foremost and don't feel comfortable following in Arabic, do please collect one of these headsets. Certainly I will need it to follow Dr. Wisha's remarks. So I'm going to begin by asking Susie, as part of a team that's working on a school improvement partnership here in the UAE, how far have you found it to be the case that there really is this tension between the technology developments at your partner schools and the schools and the principals and the teachers' concerns about cultural and language issues?
Good morning, everyone. Afternoon. I think what you need to think about first is that it's not just what's happening in our schools. It's about a country, about a national perception as well. So we've all come, most of our advisors have come from countries where we do a lot of web work, there is a lot of technology going ahead well, which the UAE is looking to. But there are some things that happen within this country or this region that don't happen back at home that we struggle with. For example, the restrictions on internet access or websites and things like that we use within our previous experience to grow culture or to support language. We're finding that some of that is what's providing tension. So it's not necessarily the unreadiness of the culture or the people. I mean, a lot of people we work with in the education sectors are forward thinkers and really want to try. It's more of a national or area perspective.
Okay, and what examples can you give of particular challenges in this area and how your team is managing some of these challenges?
Okay, well, we work with the IDIC ICT curriculum. A large percentage of that curriculum across all years depends on internet. It depends on internet reliability, internet access. It is also a very prescriptive curriculum, and bringing culture and heritage into that is incredibly challenging. So that's one of the challenges that we work with every day, and one of the things that we want to ask for or push for is a curriculum redesign that is done by the people in this region. The current EdX curriculum was written strongly from people outside the region with some consultation, and we'd like to encourage the people of this region to take it back and make it fit their scenario more.
Okay, and Dr. Wisha, what we're really looking for here in this question is real-world examples, particular challenges you've faced, and how your teams are going about managing these challenges.
Thanks. I'd just like to pick up on the points that Susie mentioned earlier. Sorry, I already start speaking in English. I forget that I promised to speak in Arabic. But it's من الأمور المهمة اللي ذكرتها سوزي قبل شوي، موضوع المنهاج، موضوع الكريكولم. المنهاج بس يعني مجرد بغض النظر إن كان منهاج من داون أندر من شمال الكرة الأرضية أو جنوب الكرة الأرضية، المنهاج مجرد ايمز بالنسبة لك، أهداف، شو اللي حاب الأولاد يتعلموه في نهاية العام. في نهاية العام الأولاد حابين يتعلموا 1 2 3. إذا الأمور المتكاملة حوالينا بغض النظر عن المنهاج، إحنا بنحاول في الريجن هون في الشرق الأوسط إنه نحول المنهاج هذا فيما يخصنا إحنا شخصيا، يعني فيما يخص المجتمع العربي والمجتمع الإسلامي، بحيث يكون مناسب إلنا في نهاية تقديمه للطلاب. من الامور يعني من الامور اللي واجهتني شخصيا يعني في عملي اثناء قيامي في زيارات المدارس الحكوميه في ابو ظبي، اللي هي في بعض الأوقات زيارة المدارس الثانوية للبنات يعني في المناطق الغربية وفي مناطق ليوا وفي أبو ظبي. عند إحدى الأمور اللي sometimes اللي بتواجهنا على طول هي موضوع التكنولوجيا، موضوع الإنترنت بالأخص، يعني الأكسس للإنترنت بالنسبة للبنات، بالنسبة للهاي سكولز، من ناحية المشاكل ممكن يواجهها أي شخص يوميا يعني، أو خوف الإدارة المدرسية من الأمور اللي ممكن الطالبة أو الطالب إنه يوصل إلها من ناحية الأكسسنج يعني أي ويب سايتس مش مناسبة للبنات. المشكلة هذه طبعا هي حاولنا تفاديها من خلال طبعا وضع سياسات في داخل المدرسة من ناحية عملية سياسات استخدام الإنترنت بالنسبة للطلبة وبالنسبة للإدارة المدرسية وبالنسبة للآباء حتى يعرفوا شو البوليسيز الموجودة في استخدام الإنترنت في المدرسة. النقطة الثانية وهي الأهم في الموضوع اللي هي الإديوكيشن، يعني الإديوكيشن is very يعني مهم جدا من ناحية تعليم الأولاد من مخاطر الإنترنت سيفتي، موضوع الأمور اللي ممكن الشخص يتعرض إلها وشو الطالب يعني in a practical way أو الطالبة إذا واجه أي أمر، إذا واجه أي مشكلة في الإنترنت شو الستبس اللي لازم يستخدمها في حالة يعني حصوله باي ميستيك إنه دخل على الجوجل سيرش and find something is not really appropriate للمستوى. هون شو الستبس اللي الستودنتس لازم يأخذها من ناحية يعني لفت انتباه المدرس أو المدرسة للموضوع، فهمت علي، وتفادي الموضوع يعني بأسرع وقت ممكن. الأمر المهم الثالث اللي حاب أنهي فيه اللي هو موضوع البيرنتس، يعني sometimes الآباء أنفسهم يعني they fear the internet، يعني بالنسبة لهم يعني خوف من الإنترنت، يعني they think it's some sort of يعني كأنها مونستر يعني وحاب إنه يعني يأكل أبنائهم. we found sometimes actually يعني إنه تعليم الآباء إنه شو الإنترنت وشو مزايا الإنترنت وشو مخاطر الإنترنت في نفس الوقت، حتى الأب يكون على علم وعلى دراية التايم اللي الطالب ممكن هي سبندت على استخدام الإنترنت في البيت وشو الوقت المناسب لاستخدام الإنترنت في البيت في حالة قيامه في عمل هوم وورك. يعني بنهي الأمر في عملية اللي هي مرة ثانية اللي هي الإديوكيشن، يعني we can't escape the internet, so the best thing is to equip with education.
I'm just a few seconds behind you.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, you have a response?
No, you go. Yeah, what I'm going to say is I agree with what you said, but I think we're not thinking enough about our students. We're thinking about what we would like as students, and there is a responsibility out there to look after our students and our children, but we're not thinking about the fact that these kids are an I generation. They're not like we were when we were young. They access their information totally differently. And what you said about the girls' school was really interesting, because I've been working with grade 10 students recently, and we've been doing goal setting for the year. 60% of these grade 10 students who last year learned that hacking was an electronic crime, 60% of them want to learn how to be hackers at school this year so that they can access the information. They know it's out there. They want to get into it, and they're frustrated by what we're doing. We're putting our fear or what we think we're going to lose cultural identity, we're putting that onto these kids who are well past us. They are well into being ready for that. And I actually think we need to trust our students a bit more, that they're going to strengthen their culture and their language by making connections, by making links with people. And the more that we try to protect them, the more that we try to hold them in, the more that they're going to try and go out and possibly go to some of those inappropriate places. I mean, we need to guide them, but I think at the moment what we're doing is we're holding them back.
I'm struck by how both answers really remind me of things that I've heard in earlier sessions. So in the session in which we explored cutting-edge technologies in learning and teaching earlier today, our moderator, Chris Paul, and some of the other presenters were reminding us really that today's children, as you said, Susie, have a sort of a comfort with and familiarity with the technology which we couldn't have imagined at the same age. I worked for a very long time in the telecom space, and there was a piece of jargon used by people in the telecoms and the broadband industries, which I heard almost every time I attended a conference, which was the notion that all three of us sitting here, and I think everybody in the audience, is a form of digital immigrant, in that we were born in an analog age, with analog systems and thinking, and we've had to move into entirely new territory and adapt. But someone like my 5-year-old son is a full-blown digital citizen who's never lived in any other environment. And again, I'm reminded of one of your comments here around encouraging our learners to experiment somewhat and taking some risks. I think we have to be mindful here of where they go with those risks and how some of that may be moderated to a degree. But again, some of our presenters earlier were talking about observing children using technology. There is less fear about getting things wrong, and a willingness to experiment, get things wrong. You know, there is not a fear of I will break the machine or I will break the internet, which at the extreme end I see from people like my grandparents' generation. I was also struck, Dr. Wishaw, by your comment about the need to engage with parents. It's, again, really resonating from what we've heard in other sessions, and I think about some of the talks that we've heard from GEMS Education and the programme that's run there to engage with parents, and again, a lot of this is resonating. So, good. I'm glad we're exploring the topic. Bearing down on something a little bit more specific, one of the talking points it was suggested that I cover. Working in your school improvement partnerships with government schools here, how far have you encountered gender-specific differences in terms of learners' access to ICT at home, perhaps, or confidence and competence with using ICT? If this is an issue, how are you handling it in your programs, and how are you handling it sensitively? I'll start with Dr. Wishaw.
Okay, thanks. من خلال عملي مع السي اف بي تي مركز المعلمين البريطانيين يعني اشتغلت او عملت مع مدارس الاولاد ومدارس البنات في نفس الوقت، وهذا بعطيك ادوار sometimes يعني clearer pictures عن الصورة أوضح من العملية الإنترنت يوزنج الأولاد والبنات في المدارس. المدارس هون في أبو ظبي، يعني من خلال عملي لاحظت إنه تختلف من ناحية الإمكانيات، من ناحية الفاسيلتيز، الأمور اللي الافيلبل للأولاد والبنات في المدارس. فهذه sometimes بيعتمد من مدرسة لمدرسة ومن ريجن لريجن، يعني حسب الإمكانيات كهاردويرز كانفراستراكشرز، يعني كتكنولوجي موجودة في المدارس أنفسهم. بس اللي لاحظته من خلال عملي مع الهاي سكولز من ناحيه العام الماضي في السي اف بي تي وي ران بزنس موديل بروجكت للهاي سكولز من ناحيه الاولاد والبنات. يعني ات واز ا نايس بيس اوف ورك، يعني كانت بروجكت ممتاز جدا لانه اعطانا فكره عن الاولاد وعن البنات يعني بطريقه عملهم. من ناحيه الاكسس طبعا كان في بعض المشاكل ذكرناها قبل شوي، موضوع الانترنت اكسس بالنسبه للبنات، وسم سكولز طبعا دي بريزيرفز يعني ما كانوش هابي من ناحيه انه استخدام الانترنت. طبعا وي هاف تو فايند انذر سولوشن للموضوع هذا اذا الانترنت يعني صعب جدا استخدامها في المدرسه، اما من ناحيه المدرسه او من ناحيه انه الفاسيلتي مش موجوده في المدرسه لاستخدام الانترنت. بس I'll get back to this point يعني بعد شوي. بس in terms of work between boys and girls to be honest with you، يعني لاحظت البنات يعني في عملهم في نهاية العام لما يعني قدموا مشروعهم العمل، وكان طبعا في إحدى المدارس هون في أبو ظبي، يعني it's really يعني كان pleasant إنه الشغل حق البنات. يعني لاحظت البنات كانوا يعني very organized، يعني كانوا مرتبين جدا، very precise بالنسبة للهدف العمل مالتهم، يعني من ناحية إنه الوصول إلى الهدف مالتهم. كانوا البنات بيشتغلوا كجروب، يعني they very well they can work really in a groups actually to produce for the final products. You know, I mean sometimes they very competitive. You know, I mean between يعني البنات كانت العمل بينهم كان شوي very competitive. الاند برودكتس كانت نهايه المشروع كانت اتس ريلي very nice. والاهم من هيك كان المشاريع كتير كانت مرتبطة بثقافة وحضارة المنطقة هون في الشرق الأوسط وبالأخص أبو ظبي. فكان كان الفرق، الاولاد كانوا اكثر يعني مور الاتنشن سبانز تبعتهم كانت قصير كثير. they very artistic sometimes and they don't concentrate على التاسك too much as much as مثل البنات. بس in term of using the technology what's available for them, I found the girls schools actually they can actually produce more from whatever you give them to finish the project.
Interesting. Before I ask you the same question, Susie, I know there's a lady at the front here who's very keen to ask a question. So if I could have the microphone here. And do please be sure to tell us who you are and where you work. Thank you.
Hi there. Sorry. My name is Julie Wilson. I'm a teacher in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I've been teaching there for about 10 years now. I'm interested in hearing maybe something a little bit more specific than where you are, if that's all right. I'm really looking for really comments on using the ICT specifically around how to engage children in Arabic language, in Quran, in religion, in all of the elements that you outlined in your intro regarding the culture as it is. How can we really be... I appreciate what you said. You're right. There isn't a lot of Arabic material on the net, but I was hoping to hear a little bit about how we can really use what is out there, what you think we need more of, and what individual schools could be starting up. For example, Arabic websites for our classrooms that our Arabic students could be doing.
Okay, very good.
Sorry,
so I would encourage you both to respond and with as many specific examples as you can. So I think it's not a question particularly to one presenter or another. No. So Susie, how would you respond?
I'm incredibly lucky. I have 18 very talented ICT advisors who work in my schools with my teachers. We do a lot of emphasis on being consumers and then being creators. So for our students to know what is out there and then what they need to know or what else they want to know, we also push a lot of integration and a lot of cross-school work on creating those things to podcasting. There's the normal projects that we tend to do like National Day and things like that, but the angle that we tend to go from is who is your audience and what is it they need to know. So when we're doing National Day projects, for example, the audience tend to be the expat community and, you know, somebody new coming in. For the podcasting or Audacity, using those sort of tools, with it's a bit hard because a lot of those start in English, so the students have to have a certain level of English to be able to access those tools, and so that's a whole learning, you know, as a consumer creator themselves.
Okay, before I encourage your answer, what I thought I understood from the question, and correct me if I'm wrong, well, let's start with this. I'm sometimes asked as somebody that's on the Bett organising team, and it was a question that I was asked when I visited principals in Algarvia about this exhibition. Is this an exhibition for ICT subject teachers, network managers and people, their whole job is IT in education? Or is this somewhere where you should visit if you work across the curriculum in some other specific subject and you're interested in how ICT enriches other areas of the curriculum? Okay, so this is a question I'm often asked, and what I thought I understood from your question was with specific reference to Islamic studies and Arabic language, how can these areas of the curriculum be enriched by the use of ICT? And I think you're looking for some specific examples, aren't you? And let's see how Dr. Wisher will respond.
بالنسبة لموضوع يعني النقطة السؤال I'll wait for you to buy your headsets. You know. بالنسبة للموضوع هذا السؤال اللي سألتيه in specific, actually using the Arabic language itself, you know, I mean, with technology, of course, to enrich the kids' experience, you know, I mean, it's من المشاريع اللي قمنا فيها في مدارس الغربية السنة الحالية، كان موضوع طبعا تحضيرا، يعني هو تحضيرا للسنة القادمة لمعرض أبو ظبي للفيلم، للأفلام اللي هي الأبو ظبي Film Festivals is actually one of the projects we're working in one of the high schools in Al-Gharbiyya, preparing a documentary film, you know what I mean, the students to shoot a documentary films about the Abu Dhabi heritage and culture in Al-Gharbiyya, in the western region, you know what I mean, to prepare 20 minutes, you know what I mean, documentary films. It's a long project, it's about 2 terms of project, you know what I mean, to work on. بس المهم في الموضوع انه طبعا استخدام اللغه العربيه، يعني استخدام اللغه العربيه الكلاسيكال، يعني مش اللغه العربيه المتحدث عليها طبعا معظم الوقت. من خلال الفيلم هذا ال20 دقيقه الفيلم you will use the Arabic language, you will rely on the Arabic teachers of course working يعني مع ال Arabic teachers to improve their Arabic in terms of like the presentation, but become like more of a cross project with the Arabic teachers. So whenever they write a piece or write something they go through the يعني بروحوا للمدرسين اللغة العربية to make sure إن اللغة العربية already compatible مع الفيلم تبعنا. موضوع الفيلم هذا يعني أنا شفت في أمور كتيرة في الغربية، يعني حتى الأولاد يعني اكتشفوا شوي عمالهم لما بلشوا بالبروجكت في أمور كتيرة عن تاريخ الإمارات وعن ثقافة الإمارات في الغربية الأولاد نفسهم مش عارفينها، إلى أن بلشوا يتحادثوا مع الآباء ومع أمهاتهم مع أجدادهم عن الثقافة الموجودة في الغربية، وبناء عليه الأفلام بلشت. فهي not only preserving their cultures in the Western region, but document it as well in a short films, and hopefully, you know, I mean, we'll see one of these films hopefully next year in the Abu Dhabi Film Festivals. So that's one area of actually working in terms of Arabic and ICT, using the Arabic and ICT language. And the other side of the coin is sometimes is actually finding a theme in each, يعني في كل terms we find like a small theme in Arabic and Islamic culture, and I try to present something using ICT for the Arabic teacher. So it will be used an ICT as يعني ال ICT ممكن نستخدم, we use the ICT as يعني the teacher will look at the ICT in terms of ICT in the piece of work, and the Arabic teacher he'll look على العربي من ناحية using the Arabic language in his in the task that the child he need to do.
Okay.
So I hope that clears some.
Thank you for the question. If you don't mind, I'm going to turn it round a little bit, because I'm as somebody that's spoken and moderated at many conferences, I'm aware that there is a degree to which we are able to bring some expertise up onto the stage, but I also know there are many valuable experiences amongst the people in the room. So were you asking the question from the point of view of total frustration with the resources available to you and projects you've been involved in, or have you been involved? I need the microphone again, ladies. I need the microphone again for this. Sorry, could you get these guys' attention? Have the microphone again, please. Thank you. I was wondering whether you have, because you mentioned you're joining us from Saudi Arabia. Yes. I know you're one of a number of visitors here from Saudi Arabia. We'd like more, obviously. Perhaps you could tell us about any projects or so on that would be of use for us here.
I'm very interested in this particular topic because I'm actually currently working on opening a school, KG through 3rd grade. And what I have been struggling with initially is looking for, first off, a good Arabic preschool curriculum. It was like an invisible entity, and you just hear that every school is doing their own thing, that it's very eclectic. They like to use these types of words, and you can't seem to get an organized, consistent quality curriculum, and I know that was mentioned at the beginning. Okay. So there was some frustration surrounding, in preschool we had freedom to look for a curriculum. Mm-hmm. In 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, I have to deal with the ministry curriculums as they are, and we are doing our best to improve and enhance those using the ICT. But another thing that I'm struggling with from my side as an outsider, however, is that I find these days, especially in the upper middle class level that we're in, I'm finding this extreme reverence to English at sacrificing the Arabic language, quality fusha. Arabic. I really find that the parents are more interested in me and the fact that I'm in the school than being, which is good. They should be concerned about the quality of their English language, but I'm concerned about the fact that they're not as concerned about their child's Arabic language development and growth, particularly in preschool ages. So, and I was also very interested to hear if you have any comments on a good quality religion program, anything that is out there that is that I could use to enhance, because again, of course, in first, second, and third grade, I have to use the Saudi ministry curriculum, but you're looking for other resources, other things that are out there that can enhance what you have. So I was hoping that as part of this panel, that it could do that.
Do we have any practical guidance in that area? Okay. It seems you have a fellow traveller with us.
I'm sorry. Our resource in our company, because we're so little resource in the school, our resource is our people and our teachers. I'm sorry, we don't have a lot of technology resources yet. We use our Islamic and our Arabic teachers for our advice and their integration. I can't give you a specific resource name.
I noticed coming from Manchester في كتير some resources is actually I'll save you putting the headset. So there is few actually some resources in terms of actually religion and using Arabic, by using it in the modern way, actually how it's supposed to be published and how it's supposed to be in terms of graphics and in terms of the actual language, you know what I mean. Things start coming, especially for a younger age, in terms of if using these kind of sources, especially like little story books, you know what I mean, which is we find a lot like in English language, but you start seeing it actually in Arabic. Some sort of cartoonic films, you know what I mean. It's like a proper Arabic, but again, it can be used rather than actually explaining to the child what's going on. Actually, let the child see it as a little movie, you know what I mean, like a cartoonic movie, you know what I mean. But it's in Arabic, using the Arabic language. So I agree with you, you know what I mean. The region here is still like behind in terms, sometimes in terms of resources, in terms of actually looking after the Arabic language. Before start to learn the English language, you need to actually learn your own language, and then you can learn the second language, you know what I mean. But if you lag behind in the first language, your mother tongue language, then it will be much harder, you know. I'm talking from experience, you know what I mean. My kids talk two languages, Arabic and English, you know what I mean. And you can see sometimes actually it's a live example in front of you how things is actually, you need to tap in many other resources to make sure that two languages actually working hand in hand, as well as, of course, you know what I mean, learning maybe a third language, you know what I mean, which is they need to learn sometimes in the school. So it's as a teacher, you know what I mean, and as a parent, you know what I mean, sometimes you have to look around, you know what I mean, and keep moving around, looking for any exhibitions, you know what I mean, where you can find some sort of resources actually you can use in your schools or for your kids.
Okay. I'd like to make it. It might not be the most practical suggestion in the world because it's quite an open-ended one and perhaps it's long-term. But you know, as somebody that's been involved in a lot of conferences and in different industry sectors, one of the things that I've observed is you find some of the frustrations around what's available to people on the buy side in this audience, the consumer in this audience. You find fellow travellers. You find a lady from the back applauded your sentiments, and I sense, as you say, the approaches to this problem are quite individual. As an event organizer, I've always really encouraged people that come to exhibitions and conferences to hear about what's available. If they find that what they're looking for is not available, to start discussions with their peers about how do you pressure the supply side to provide what you want. And this might be quite a small-scale activity. At a very minimum, you know, I would encourage you to connect with our two presenters here. Perhaps you'll hear in a bit more detail offline what they've been working on, and perhaps, you know, you will find as many questions and answers, but some commonality about what sorts of questions you might all be asking. I think while the technology that we're bringing into our classrooms and living and working online is a wonderful thing, I think the opportunity to meet face-to-face with people that are working in similar markets, but there's a wide enough difference, it can be useful, and I would encourage everybody else to take the opportunity. I'll return in the time we have. Oh, there's a question over here on the left-hand side. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sally Sarafidis. I work for Al Jazeera Children Channel. Actually, I don't have any question.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Up here, we can't hear you very clearly. So if you could be a little bit louder, that would be good.
My name is Sally Sarafidis, and I work for Al Jazeera Children Channel. And actually, I can help you with the content you are looking for, because we developed a new website, and the content of the website, it's video on demand in Arabic related to the curriculum. And actually, all the small videos on demand, we took them from the channel, and they take subjects like Tarbiyah Madaniya, and we don't have religion till now, but we are working on them. And it's a free service for the school, like the school can subscribe, and through the subscription of the school, teacher can have a username and a password and use the content in class with the teacher. So the main content, it's video on demand from 3 to 5 minutes related to curriculum, and all the videos have memos related and flash animation, especially for science. Right. So the name of the website is ta'allam.tv, and I will give you my business card. Okay.
Very good. Now, this may seem slightly unseemly. You've had the opportunity here to share the existence of that resource and the fact that you're developing a religion
it's
curriculum
already,
resource.
we launched it like 1 year ago, and it's online, and many schools are subscribed in Abu Dhabi, in Oman, in Qatar, because we are coming from Qatar.
Fine. You've had the opportunity to bring it to the attention of people here who perhaps weren't familiar with it. I'm going to go on the sales pitch here.
It's free, actually. It's I'm not selling anything.
But if you find a way of making that known to a wider number of our visitors at the 2011 version of this event, I would really recommend it. I'm sure that
actually it's online, it's available, and many people are finding the website through Google and through other.
Okay, if we can help you with more routes to market, we'd love to do that.
Thank you.
Sales pitch over. Back to the non-commercial piece. Okay, so returning to the list of questions that we brainstormed before this together, I want to turn to one of the issues that's been talked up as being paramount in all of the discussions that we've had previously, which is around the continuing professional development of teachers. Reference has been made here to the availability of Arabic language resources, but what about ICT training programs in the Arabic language? How effective are these, and what's the availability that you've encountered? Susie?
I haven't encountered a large number of availability. Like there might be specific courses on subjects like robotics, and often that is done in English and Arabic, but the PD that we run in our schools, we tend to take in English. We might work with our translator if the people's English is not high enough to cope with the concept. The EdIC curriculum, ICT curriculum, is promoted to be taught in English. And that brings up for us some issues around assessment and things. So a lot of the professional development we do with our teachers, we try and prepare them for that by doing that in English. It's not something I've noticed as a strength happening in this country.
Okay. So perhaps that's a problem area. And your experience?
In our experience, to be with you, in terms of involving the Arabic and the Islamic studies teacher in our CBD program, to be with you, it's CFBT. Actually, this is one of our priority this year, and from last year we started is actually to engage all teachers, whether a geography teacher, Islamic teacher, or an Arabic teacher, in our CBD sessions. We have always like a system of interpretation in terms of Arabic and use of English. Doesn't matter who's actually presenting the CBD, but the involvement of Arabic and Islamic teachers is actually one of the things is actually we're moving towards, and we already started, and we start actually seeing the benefit of involving those teachers in terms of using ICT and technology, and I mean in the classroom, to actually have a more active and interactive lessons for the kids. So the language sometimes, it's a barrier, of course, but you try to overcome it, by actually preparing your material, getting some sort of, if you speak in English, an interpreter actually to explain that lesson to them in Arabic, or that CDB in Arabic. But it's the involvement, actually, not excluding any teacher in the school, is actually, this is one of the key points in improving and using ICT in the schools.
Okay, so it sounds like a work in progress, but some real progress there from your team, and perhaps, again, if there are others working in systems where less progress has been made thus far, I would encourage you to approach Dr. Wisher at the end of the session for a bit more detail. I'm sure he'd be pleased to guide you. And I think a couple of these other questions have been covered in some detail. One that actually was a suggestion of yours, Dr. Wishart. We've been, I guess, talking a little bit about web-based materials, internet-based materials, the non-availability of training programs and so on in Arabic as, potentially being forms of some kind of threat to the Islamic and the Arab culture of the region. But you put it to me before the session that ICT in the classroom, in the curriculum, can actually be used to help preserve Arabic and Islamic culture. So you weren't terribly specific, so perhaps you can expand on that a bit.
All right, okay. It's in this manner, there is actually two sides for this point. I'd like just to bring an earlier example. Is actually about, to be precise, around 600 years ago. Is actually when Gutenberg invented the type machines. That's at that time is the internet. That's the Bill Gates of the technology in the olden days. He's actually, during that time in 1439, I think so. It's where the typing machine is actually invented in Europe. The point in the Muslim world at that time, this is something we can't use. We're not allowed to use. We can't actually use a typing machine to print Islamic and Quranic books. For the Muslim world. So the Muslim world has to stay behind. You know how many years we have to stay behind in this region? Before actually to accept the printing machines into society. Almost 250 years waiting behind to accept the printing machine. Can you imagine in 250 years without printing books, without education, without reading, without writing, because one scholar, he said, we can't use it, in our society. So we're facing the same thing this time, but in a different perspective in terms of internet and technology at this time, Internet, technology, it doesn't matter what kind of technology we're using, we use it all around us, laptops, mobile phones, Blackberries, interactive whiteboards, cameras, videos. All these is a technology, kind of technology. So you can't marginalize one side and accept the other side of technology. It can't be, this type of technology threaten my religion, but the other side of technology is okay with my religion. It's all kind of technologies, but it's a vehicle, it's a tool at the end of the day. How you want to use it, of course you can use it. It's in this region, I think, to be based in the previous example, is technology is actually there to preserve culture and heritage, and document everything for us rather than ignoring it and find ourselves 100 years ahead, like we don't have anything to show to our grandkids, about what this culture is all about 50 years ago.
Okay.
Thanks.
We're running a little over the time that we allotted. Before we close, did anybody have any further questions for our panelists or any further comments? If that's the case, I'd like to thank Dr. Wishart, Mahmoud, and Susie as well for their contributions to this discussion. Real learning experience to me. I fessed up at the beginning that this is a new area, so I hope the questions were just about insightful enough in terms of stimulating some discussion. As I said, I do encourage you, if you didn't have the opportunity to ask questions that you've been holding back, do approach our panellists afterwards. And now I know you'll join me in thanking them in the usual way for their participation. Thank you.